Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lisa, Lead Incubator and Startup Accelerator Design and Innovation Panel. And I'm Deepti Pahwa, one of the founding partners of Lisa, and I've also been working in design and innovation space for about 2 decades. And today we have some very experienced design leaders here to talk about what it means to be customer centric and why happy users lead to profitable businesses. So it would be great if you guys go ahead, like Andy, Abhijit, Jonathan, and Justin, just about a quick 2 to 3 minute introduction about yourself, your role in your company, and also a bit about your design, product, and innovation leadership experience thus far. So maybe with Andy, we can start there.
Okay. Hi, I'm Andy Daly. It's spelled a little funny, but it's daily, like daily news. Um, so I've worked in as a designer in tech for over 20 years. When I say that, I kind of like, wow, it seems like a long time. I did study at the Media Lab at MIT a few years back, and I've built several design teams at Google and Facebook and a bunch of other smaller companies that you haven't, and that's kind of been the thing, that building teams and focusing on early stage things is something I've always focused on. I started getting into, based on the MIT work, getting into AI before it was cool, before it was ubiquitous, but now it's not so weird that a designer works in AI, and that's because we're all doing that. But I've set up a bunch of teams around that. And like I said before, I really like that beginning phase of setting things up and figuring them out and defining products and new technologies and making them work for people, like really work for people and the way they work. I'm currently now in stages of setting up a new company, helping other companies be more innovative and design driven. I'm not trying to be secretive. It's just more, I think I'm not really ready to share a whole bunch more after that, but I'm excited to be here and share and talk to you all.
Thank you, Andy. Jonathan?
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Jonathan Lupo. I oversee the digital experience design practice at EPAM, a company you may or may not have heard of, little technology company of about 40,000. But my journey to EPAM came by way of starting up my own company in Philadelphia, a user experience and digital strategy firm called Empathy Lab, whose passionate beliefs were about gaining deep insights about consumers, doing ethnographic research, and really informing product development from the mindset and the lens of the consumer. And that was back in 2005. So I've been with EPAM for 9 years, and what we've been doing is taking that design practice, which we helped to start really in a global technology company, and build it into an innovation consulting, end-to-end integrated consulting offering, which we relaunched last year as EPAM Continuum. So, very excited for our conversation, really happy to meet you all and glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Justin?
Yeah, so Justin Morken, just feel so honored to even be a part of this amazing group here today. So I am a principal product designer, really focusing on growth design and kind of the consumer space at Coursera. And so just as you can imagine, with the pandemic this last year, we've just been growing like crazy now. Prior to that, I was with Intuit and got to work with one of their acquired companies, T-Sheets, which got acquired after it was a startup of about 200 people or so, and so really dealt with time tracking, and they were the top integrated add-on to QuickBooks. And then prior to that was with various other startups like truckstop.com and Sensi, which may or may not be familiar with, it's like a multi-level marketing company. And so really, especially in recent years, being at Coursera, really gotten passionate about the growth design space, and really thinking about intentionally designing for the onboarding experience for our users. So often I think there's this big drop off that happens between the marketing team's efforts to get people into the funnel and then the product team's efforts to have a great to use product. And so many people are lost by not getting to ever experience the value propositions that we spend so much time on. And so really in the growth design space, from kind of a product perspective, really trying to make that as a kind of a core competency of thinking about how we get users into experiencing the actual benefits of the product.
Thank you, Justin. Such diverse and really amazing backgrounds. Abhijit?
Sure. Thanks, Deepti, and hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I guess we have people from every part of the world here. Abhijit, I'm based here in the Bay Area. I currently work at VMware. I head the product design strategy for one of their leading products called vSphere. Product brings about 40% of the revenue for the company. So it's a very interesting and very involving role. But to kind of roll back a little bit about my background. So like I said, my roots are in engineering and industrial design. So my journey really started as a product designer. I worked on physical product design, done automotive design, consumer durables, also worked in a large industrial setting, designing CNC machines, and then kind of pivoted into a digital space in the late 90s, starting as a human factors engineer, really kind of focused on the economics and the human factors and the cognitive psychology side of things. So I was lucky to kind of have worked with some of the best people in the industry, people with double PhDs in cognitive psychology and behavioral science. So that kind of laid a very solid foundation for me. I've done a lot of research work early on in my career as a user experience designer. Focused on really kind of going out and doing ethnographic studies, doing the needs assessment, really kind of trying to understand what are the pain points, what are the needs which are both stated, unstated, right? So a lot of my, and I kind of carry that foundation into my role today, where a lot of my focus is on really thinking about next 18-24 months of our product roadmap, right? Where is the customer heading? Why are they doing what they're doing? What are the other trends that are influencing what they do in their world, both in the enterprise as well as in the consumer space? My initial work has been in consulting, and I'm very thankful for that, because I've worked in both boutique design consultancies as well as in the management consultancy space. So that kind of really helped me get a more cross-industry and a more global view of how the design kind of really relates to different industries and how it kind of helps different organizations in different areas of their operations. Over the last few years, my focus has been really taking design more strategically and making it more closer and integral part of the business strategy. So in my role at VMware, my focus is more of a product management, which is kind of a design-led product management, if you will, right? So I kind of, I'm a strong voice and kind of work very closely with our product and business leadership team and engineering leadership team. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the tools and techniques and methods that we use, and happy to share those with all of you.
Thank you, Abhijit. I think one of the best things about today's panel is that everybody is from fields like AI or customer centricity or design practices when they were not even buzzwords. So, I mean, now these are common practices. So definitely we are here to get some really deep insights. I hope so. So Jonathan, starting with you, you designed Empathy Lab back in 2005, and of course now it's acquired by EPAM. And I believe you would be one of the few early design leaders who actually started working on customer at the center concept as against technology first companies. Tell us more about that experience and how Empathy Lab was born.
Yeah, so we were really looking, me and my founders, co-founders, which, by the way, I think the most important decision to make when you just get started with a business is your partners, and making sure that it's not just your voice and your vision, and it's not an echo chamber of you, that you have that diversity of thought to bring an idea to market and to really troubleshoot, think about all the problems that could go wrong. And as we thought about what is our differentiator, what do we believe in, our brand, which is really important. Some people, when they're starting, they're like, okay, what's the name? What's the identity? It's a quick, like, agile sprint to get to a brand. And we took our time with it a little bit and thought, well, we really care about deep insights. Empathy is at our core. We understand that great products succeed or fail by whether consumers adopt them or not. So let's build our brand around this concept. So Empathy Lab was born, and those were intentional words. It meant we were developing products with empathy at the core. It was a lab, and we saw it that way. And so then we built out our offering, and we were like, well, let's use our brand, our value, and think about how do we design offerings that support our core value of empathy. And so ethnographic research became a tool in our kit that was key to our brand. Deep customer consultation for our clients. So, we took a single concept, and hopefully I'm not overly verbose in my response, but what I'm trying to say is the way we built the value of our offering was by differentiating it through like a common value that our brand espoused, which was empathy. And that led us to all of these different types of consumer research techniques and consulting offerings, which eventually our name, kind of got out there, and we were designing strategies, customer strategies that we needed to deliver, and we needed huge technology muscle in order to bring those ideas to life, and that's where the marriage with EPAM came into play. So hopefully that gives you a sense of how we started.
Right, interesting. And what is very interesting is also that one is customer centricity that everybody talks about, but also your focus on one simple idea and kind of building around that. And that's something which is a great takeaway here. Andrew, you are a technology design veteran, and you've worked with startups and AI design teams at Google and Facebook. Within Lisa cohort, we have quite a few startup ideas that are obviously technology driven and also make use of AI and neural networks, etc. What advice would you be giving to them for building technology products that serve first and foremost real human needs, not technology and the AI products, etc. Right?
Yeah, I think if I understand the question, I think it's so compelling and easy to get excited about a new technology and what it can do, and can I play with it? And to be very push centric, like push a new technology out. Wait, what could this is going to change everything. And I think making sure you're solving like real user problems. I almost feel I think it sounds obvious, but I think we have to always keep reminding ourselves that we're not just excited about a new tech and what it can do. And like, is it really better? Is it really solving a problem? Is a really important thing to just always keep that perspective. And I think that's where you want that really strong partnership between some kind of a technical team that really understands the nature of whatever this new technology is and what it can do. But then keeping that in check with, well, what do we really want to accomplish and what are the problems we're solving to create real value for people? I think I think it's so important to have both, because I also don't like when people say completely design centric and let's just figure out what we want and go build it. I think it's really balancing what can we do and what should we do and what do people really want us to do? If that, I don't know if that gets into, I think it's just important to have those as a partnership rather than either side of that.
Right. So what I'm really hearing is basically the technology adds scalability, optimization, all of those things, but at the same time, it has to be a good marriage between the needs and the what the capacity a technology can bring to you, right? At the same time, do you have
Yeah, it's so
any
new. Yeah.
do you
Everybody gets excited about new, but like, is
Mhm.
new better? Like, is it doing what we want? Checking.
Right. So is there any story around some product that you were building and where you really felt that the technology that you were using was really useful for that use case, for instance?
I mean, I think I think you're saying like what coming from
the
it's
perspective
hard
of
on the fly. I
okay,
apologize.
no problem. I was just saying, is it
Can you ask me that?
the question
Like
again? So is it
example
basically like a technology where because of the need being solved and the AI coming together that made for an excellent use case? Do you have any such story to share with us?
It's hard off the cuff to come. I think it's constant that there's always some balance of those things. But I apologize. I don't have like some. I don't want to waste the. There's so much going on here. I don't. Can I think about it for a sec? I apologize. That's a really good question. And I was like, oh, why didn't I have that ready as some amazing example? All I can say is I think it happens all the time, and it's about observing and trying things and how they work. Yeah.
Definitely, we can get back to it. Abhijit, so we've been talking about customer focus and humans, centered design, as well as customer centricity and user centricity. That relates to deep, really deep insights regarding the users, but at the same time, there is also about mechanisms that you need to deliver and kind of create around what is it that is the lived reality of these customers. And I know within VMware, you have, worked with a persona that is called Anita. Could you tell a little bit about Anita and why she's so important?
No, absolutely. No, and it's a great question, right? And I do want to kind of go back to your previous question as well, if there is a chance. Happy to kind of share some examples from my experience. But to kind of answer your question, right? I think, this is relevant for not just a large enterprise like ours, right, where we are catering to a fairly wide segment of customers and different organizations across Fortune 500, but at the same time, we have a large customer base of SMB customers, right, small and medium businesses. So for us, it's extremely important for us to really have good and deep understanding of who these users are. So the way we kind of segment our customers is that, of course, there are buyer influencers because we are in the enterprise product space. So we want to kind of really understand how the decisions are being made about investment in technology, because those are the products that we bring to the market. There are business stakeholders, there are CIOs, CTOs, architects who kind of decide how they want to invest into their infrastructure, right, both on-prem as well as cloud. And then there are users, end users, right, who are working in the data centers and using our software to manage their infrastructure and support their developers and development teams, right? So for us, it's extremely important that what we call it as living in the customer's mind, right? And over last 4 or 5 years, not just design team at VMware, but broadly marketing team and product teams, we have been investing in doing more fundamental grounds up persona research. And based on that research and very close collaboration with our customers, we have identified a set of personas that kind of cut across our customers' organization, right? And these are all the users who have basically various touch points at different phases in the life cycle. They actually interact with our product and services. And we have so with this persona documentation, we have a very common understanding across VMware. So if I'm walking into a meeting with someone from, say, customer support team, we just talk about, hey, we are talking about this data center administrator. Her name is Anita. It's a fictitious character, but we have a very clear understanding of what Anita does, what her pain points are, how does she interact with her peers, people from security, from cloud administration, or from networking, right? And it's extremely important for all of us to have that kind of a common language across a 40,000 people company with like 30,000 engineers and 200 designers. So it just becomes a very powerful tool for all of us to kind of keep our personal biases out of that conversation and focus on the user.
Right. I mean, so developing those personas really helps everybody align the vision of what you're building, right?
Absolutely. But at the same time, I want to add that this is not a once and done kind of a thing, right? We need to constantly invest because our customers, the environment, the industry is evolving and evolving at a very rapid pace. Similarly, our customer organizations are evolving. Similarly, the user roles are evolving. So we need to kind of continue to invest almost every few months to really learn new things about these people, right? Because we are very much part of their own transformation and their own growth. So how do we kind of really support the evolving role of those users?
All right. Right. Thank you, Abhijit. Justin, you've been working in Coursera, and EdTech has obviously been booming during the pandemic times. And Coursera started long before that, right? I mean, it's a handful of schools that got together, including Stanford itself, and managed to successfully monetize something like Coursera. And I know you do a lot of right now, a lot of thinking around, this competitive landscape, which is coming up with so many, courses being offered online. So how do you get to the new consumer insights in the current landscape when there is already so much competition and the products are so well developed? How do you come at that, trends that are coming up next to design for new courses?
That's a great question. So I think a lot of how myself and my team kind of approach that problem is around trying to maybe like upgrade the quality of our insights and our research. And what I mean by that is, you've probably 2x2s before about like how easy research is to perform versus how deep and rich the insights are to be had. So it's like if sending out a survey, if that's one of the easier ways to get insights, a lot of times the type of insights that you're going to get are not necessarily as rich and as in a competitive landscape going to give you as much of an advantage as the kinds that require more investment. Still, I think we kind of have the gold standard being observing users in their natural environment using a product or trying to solve their problems. And so I think especially when you have a competitive landscape like EdTech, where you are having new startups pop up every day and going after specific problems, I think a lot of it for us is trying to get those deeper insights by spending more time with users, by trying to invest in more opportunities to be able to see them in their natural environment, so to speak, as well. A lot of it sometimes is finding who is solving the problems better than we are, and trying to talk to people, interview users that chose a different solution than your own and were successful in reaching their goal, and try to unpack with them, okay, how did our competitor solve your problem better than we did? I think sometimes maybe in our mind we think that that's like off limits to talk to the people who chose somebody instead of us, but you'd be surprised how often people are willing to just, especially in the ed tech space, where I think it's a little bit more altruistic, where we're trying to help increase educational opportunity around the world. It's amazing how willing people are to give those insights and be able to help you kind of get inside their shoes a bit better.
Right. And I remember you also talked about, redesigning the onboarding experience. So sometimes not just the product itself, maybe the experience design matters a lot. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think some of it is, maybe some of you are familiar with the term like service design, and I think sometimes it's about kind of expanding our viewpoint of thinking about that the user's step one isn't the first step when they started using our product, but rather trying to zoom out a little bit, think about what is that user, what's that learner before they even tried our product, right? What are the other ways that they have been trying to solve their problem that led them to now look for a paid solution? What were the free alternatives that they tried before that, and why didn't those work for them? And so I think when you start to kind of zoom out a little bit, it even expands the idea of what does that onboarding look like, where you start to think more holistically, where like in the educational space, you don't think about the onboarding strictly about the moment when they registered for the product and we started sending them emails, but you start to think about like, what did their experience look like when they started to talk to their spouse about needing to switch careers, or talk to their roommate about why they need to learn new skills or something like that. And so I think when you start to think about that and you start to think about those things as part of the onboarding process, then you start thinking about how can we how can we facilitate those things within our product? How can we spark important conversations that happen with their support system around them that will eventually lead to their success towards their goals.
Right. So you're also talking about engagement design a little bit, and not just experience,
Yeah.
but engagement as well. Right. Jonathan, you are working with EPAM in white space business design and service design as a consultant, right? And the audience of this panel, Lisa cohort, they're going through consumer insights and discovery phase at this point in time.
Yeah.
Uh, would you have any story to share with them where the customer insights first, but of course, then the subsequent testing of the idea led
Mhm.
to some surprising outcomes or pivots in a product or service design?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't mention the client name, but a project which I'm still engaged with a healthcare company, pharmaceutical company, which I can't mention, is creating a healthcare service. And, the brief is we're going to create this new service leveraging technology to kind of service underrepresented populations who have challenges accessing healthcare. Either they're in these rural areas, highly rural areas where they're not close to hospitals or their clinics or their doctors. So remote technology is supposed to bring them closer to a doctor, like via, and of course the core idea is like virtual visits, right? So, if that's the premise, right? And I say virtual visit to you all, what comes to mind first? You probably all think, oh, these are like home visits, right? But if you think about it and you actually start talking to these underrepresented populations, you have conversations with them, you realize, number one, they have lower tech literacy and fluency. So technology, which may be the natural solution to the problem, isn't really a viable one to many of those people you're trying to help. So that's your first surprising insight. And then number two, we dig deeper into the lives of these folks who live in these highly rural areas. We find out there's socioeconomic problems, right? Some of them don't even have homes. So then, okay, that strikes at the core of your concept, which is we think of virtual visits, virtual healthcare as in the home. Well, that hypothesis is immediately proven to not support a big percentage of that population who are homeless. So then you start to think, okay, I didn't know the problem was this big until I started actually talking to people. And now what I'm thinking is, if we create this service and we target it towards the most extreme populations, those who need it the most, we come up with innovative solutions for this service that also support all of the other populations, that are in less extreme, conditions. Those are insights you would never think of just in an ideation session with a few stakeholders. You really have to get out there in the field and talk to the people who are living this. So, hopefully that gives you a sense of where these deep insights can really result in innovation.
Yeah. Can I add something there? It's a very relevant topic, Deepti, if I may just add to that, right? I think one of the things that you will notice, right, a lot of successful startups, you will notice that the founders have actually personally faced those challenges themselves. That they have gone through those deep personal experiences and challenges, and that's where the idea has been kind of rooted. Saying that, hey, I'm trying to solve this problem for myself, and there are many others like me who are facing the same challenge, right? And those ideas really flourish because it is based on a deep a pain point, or whether it's a toothache or a headache, right? You can decide that you're trying to solve for. And I think to me that is very, very critical. And if you personally have not gone through it, then doing that kind of a deep empathy research is extremely important, where you kind of really put yourself and live in the customer's mind.
Can I just respond to that? And I hear you, but the thing is, from my perspective, is you never have that range and diversity of experience that is representative of the population of your consumers with just your founder cohort, right? Like my partners could not have represented, an entire population of consumers of the services we were designing. And that's why I think it's so important. Like design to me is a team sport, and that team starts with, other designers. Like I never put them out on their own. And because they have to talk to each other and bounce ideas off one another. But then that team expands to consumers of the service, like, and you just, and to your point you made earlier, Abhijit, like the world is changing, like behaviors are changing, the markets are changing, everything is dynamic and fluid. So it's not a one and done deal. You have to keep learning. Just because you have personas, customer personas codified, or you have archetypes, like that customer service archetype you were describing, it doesn't mean that those are going to be valid next year, next month. We're in a pandemic, like things are changing daily, weekly. So I hear you though.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
that's very interesting. As a designer, we're always told to like not design for ourselves. So I kind of like see both sides of that. I'm like, yes, if you are actually designing something for that, I think you guys, I'm not even disagreeing with either one of those. I think it's just empathy or truly understanding the problem you're trying to solve and go for it. And yes, if you're directly the person, great, you can design the perfect solution for yourself. But I think the art, I think that Jonathan is to be able to say, well, how can I understand someone else's situation? Not just my own, not just design for me is something that we all struggle with, but all need to figure out to make good products for other people versus just for us.
So great conversation there. And I think what I'm really hearing is that the pain point is important, personas are important, but then you have to go out and test your assumptions. Data beats opinion, simple beats complex. Prototypes are important, prototypes are important to be able to test your ideas, right? And to your point, Jonathan, I completely agree with your surprising finding about homeless populations. I myself am working in the health equity space and had very similar findings like you've had recently. So, Andrew, to coming back to you, you led design of Google Hangouts, and you also redesigned Google sign-in and sign-ups, right? Anything about that process, pitfalls, failures, iterations, pivots, anything that you would like to share?
Let's see. Well, Well, Google sign-in was a long time ago, and it might not sound like anything, but I was literally the first designer ever assigned to help with sign in, sign up. Like I did like the first mobile sign in, that to date myself a little bit, that's when we were doing this. And there was no, you know, there was like Facebook Connect, but it wasn't the way you signed in. It wasn't universal. And it was just very mission critical. It was like, just don't screw it up. And no, it's a very complex set of problems on like a single page. Like it was like my starter project even coming into Google. I was like, no problem, fine. I'll do this in 2 weeks, I'll be on to the next project, but there was a lot more to it. But I'll put I think Hangouts is more interesting. I think Hangouts, I think Google's work on communication products is tragic in a way, and I'm not going to expel all of that out, but I mean, we're using Zoom, which to me, I'm very proud that Google Hangouts, the way we started it, was a product that was one of the earliest products that said, hey, we're going to focus on group communication versus one-to-one. Every other video product at that time was about one-to-one, and we're like, well, we could do one-to-one, but let's start from group and we can do one-to-one. And I think we did a good start there, like a good, but I think the thing I'm most proud of is helping people step back. Everybody wanted to add features, like everybody wanted to, like, and they wanted to wrap. And what I'm most proud of is forcing everyone to go back and compare it to, like, when you watch a movie on TV, do you want a bunch of apps around it? It's like, shouldn't the focus of this app be about the communication interaction with the other person, get everything else out of the way and get all of that out of the way? And I think that was a struggle to tell that story to folks who are all about building things and features and adding things in and wrap it. And so I think the main thing I did was get rid of things. And you know, when you're designing someone, no, it's pretty hard to get rid of, like, everyone thinks, well, why are you taking away my code, my designs, my anything? And I'm like, no, it's just getting to the essence of what we're really trying to do is important. And it's amazing how hard it is to get a team and a culture to see that and do that. And, you know, I look at it now and everyone kind of at this stage is like, Hangouts, Google, Lane, like we didn't figure it out, but it's like, oh, well, we did have it. There was a lot of things around it. So, but I'm quite proud of that, of getting everything out of the way. And we've even several patents, which I'm actually shocked that they've not tried to enforce. Like literally the cards on this screen with names on them are something that we came up with. It was like, wow. When someone, there's a bunch of things around that I'm super proud of coming with. I'm actually glad they're not enforcing those patents because, you know, right. I think
so
it's great.
But
anyway, sorry. That's
great lessons there on you know, trying to have too many features versus features that really matter. And I think that's a great lesson.
Getting the essence of anything, right? I think that's anything you have to do. I'm sorry, but yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you. Here, yeah, clear.
All right. And also, I mean, I would just say the mantra should be, you know, just first try it and then build it. If people are ready to try that out, features out, only then build something. Otherwise, try and keep it lean, right? Abhijit, I know you guys at VMware do a lot of storyboarding. Would you like to share some examples of how you use storytelling in early stage of an idea to get, you know, more buy-ins or first customers or users, and why storytelling element is so important in an early stage of an idea?
Sure, no, absolutely, and I'm sure something that is probably closer to a lot of people here, especially if you have gone through the innovation playbook course at Stanford Lead, right, as part of the Lead program, and the power of story building, storytelling, and then story selling, right? And that's how I like to kind of put it. we are using stories extensively. In fact, last 2-3 years, we have been focused on really using end-to-end story framework to align all our cross-functional teams to what customers are trying to achieve in their businesses, right? And using our products and services. And for us, it becomes very important aspect of anything that new that we are doing, where we are using story as a starting point to kind of really bring the cross-functional teams together and build that story. We typically start with what's really the customer story, what is it that customer, where the customer is in their current journey of digital transformation, what are some of the pain points, what is it that they're trying to achieve using our products, right? We really kind of focus on their own business goals and objectives in terms of if you're a retail customer using VMware products, what is it that you're trying to achieve as a business outcome? And then kind of work backwards from that point onwards to really see where and how our products and services kind of really support and in fact, in many cases, enable that journey for the customer, right? So that becomes very important. We have a layered story approach. So we kind of start with the customer story, then there is a market story, which we focus on, which really kind of talks about, with this kind of a state of industry, state of customer, what is it, what change are we bringing to the market with this innovation or with this idea? Then it kind of gets into the actual product story or a service story, right? And it's a full blueprint in terms of how, not just one product, because one of the things that we're doing, and I think it's important to state here with the story approach, is we are trying to break the organizational silos within VMware, right? Because for customers, the experience should not come across as a disjointed experience between different products, right? How do we kind of really bring our products and services together to support that story more in a more seamless way, right, for the customer? So story approach allows us to do that, and everyone can then understand how and where their product or a service can fit into that story and which part of the story that they are enabling. It ultimately leads us to kind of also decide how do we want to even measure the success, right? And what kind of impact matrices that we need to build so that we know we are doing the right things for our customers. And the last but not the least is really, when I say the layers, they are not hierarchical layers, right? But the last piece is really the technology story. And in many cases, sometimes we lead with the technology story because we are a technology engineering company, right? And we have a super engineering talent, and we have a point of view, into the future, right? How and where this technology is leading, because in many cases, VMware is actually making that kind of a technology change and bringing that technology change in the market. So sometimes we lead with the technology story. In many cases, we lead with the customer story. And then, of course, we kind of have the product story, which kind of brings all of that together.
Right. Justin, let's talk a bit about good product judgment. And I think we've talked a little bit about that, but we talked about identifying the need and then testing it and getting it to the market as a product. But when the right product calls are being made, how do you identify that balance between the right financial and business opportunity? And since you're also a little bit working on the growth side of the business, how would you help transfer that advice to our entrepreneurs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of times for me, kind of my guiding principle around that is the idea that if you try to take shortcuts to maximize the business metrics in the short term, that it's going to come back to bite you in the long term. And that's, I think, sometimes where the importance of telling that story to the business stakeholders that I'm working with is really important for them to help understand that, yeah, we can try to throw some gasoline on this thing in the short term. And, if you think of it like the bonfire, you throw gasoline and it goes like this, but it's not gonna be this long sustaining fire, which is what we really want. And so it's like, let's really build that fire, right? And I think a lot of times, if I'm meeting resistance with stakeholders around that or colleagues around that, what's a really powerful tool that I use a lot is really the tool of role play. And it's the interesting thing about role play. I've really been doing a lot of, it's been a big theme for me and my team recently. And it's interesting for me, almost every time I go into like a role play session where we're like, okay, we're going to put ourselves in the shoes of a user. If I'm to be honest, I always feel a little skeptical going in. I'm always like, this isn't going to do anything. And yet every time I do it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got new insights and empathy that I didn't expect to get. And so I think a lot of times, you know, if there's this tug of war going on, or this butting of heads going on of like, no, we should do this because it's good for the business, and no, we should do this because it's good for the users. I think a lot of times, rather than continuing the debate, what's really helpful is to kind of align everyone back to feeling the user's pain. And a lot of times that can be really powerful going through the role play. So like, I can think of an example with a team at QuickBooks one time where there was this back and forth having to do with actually is funny. Andy was mentioning sign up, sign on process. It's such a gnarly problem and problem space. And it was an issue around that where there was, we were trying to figure out whether to address some UX debt around that or not. And so I actually had the engineering team come in and put them through a role play where I said, okay, you are you're an hourly worker working for a small business, and this is your first day on the job, and I'm trying to onboard you to the software, and had them go through it. And after the end of an hour, it had been such a painstaking experience for them, and they were so frustrated because they were like, we're on the engineering team, like I shouldn't be having problems getting through this. And yet after the course of an hour, maybe only half of the people had gotten into the software. And so as a result of that, everyone left with like, man, we need to prioritize this. And so it became something that was a really big win for the users and a win for the business, even though I think coming in, not everyone saw it that way.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, important to the story, what also Abhijit talked about a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll take
I'm
one of
dying to jump on to that
Sure.
if it's okay.
Go ahead.
I actually, and this, I also completely agree with where Justin's coming from. So this is, I don't think this is contra, I think this is more micro, but I think it's not, but I think it's worth emphasizing. People always talk about failing fast. I hate when people say fail fast, because that just, nobody wants to fail. I don't care what you say. It's learn fast, not fail fast, but okay. But I think I've come to a process within a team that's a little radical, but I think when you really step back, it comes down to this. I think make fast decisions, period. Like not argue, not debate them, and then test them. And then I'll take it to the most black and white just to not waste everybody's time. But I think one of three things happen. Number one, so if it's just an A/B choice, you pick design A or design B. You do it, you just do it. Like actually, maybe even you flip a coin quite literally. I'd love to do that sometime, or really take it to that extreme. And then either it's right, great, you made a fast decision, you win, you're right. Or you're wrong, and you also learned really quick and you can change. Or you can't tell the difference, and then it doesn't matter anyway. So you kind of win no matter what, is the way I like take that scenario. So I've kind of come to quite a radical approach within the cosm. I think this is outside of what I completely agree with Justin. But I think, but within that microcosm of just not debating the little things and just moving quickly and trying quickly, to me is how you get good product judgments, period. Like,
take your point on that. Learning fast is really important, and taking action is
sorry,
more
I
important.
couldn't resist jumping in.
Definitely.
100%.
Yeah. Jonathan, one of the last questions with you, and then maybe we'll take some audience questions. So your forte is experience design, and so often startups, they concentrate too much on product itself, but not on the experience, right? Any advice would you like to give about the kind of techniques you're trying, as well as there was one question around testing, and I know you do a lot of that. So if you can address that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot there. So first of all, I don't see a separation between product and experience, or service and experience. I think, you know, if you look at everything, every touch point with the customer as an experience, right? You're gonna do a lot, you're gonna be more successful because, you know, it's an emotional decision-making process for consumers to choose your product or service. People forget that, and they work on the mechanics of their product, like, oh, we need these features to support these workflows, these jobs to be done. But really, they forget that the most influential thing that leads to decision-making is your emotional response to a situation. And so using that neuroscience concept, you naturally create experiences that, you know, are more emotional for users, and you can drive adoption that way. And so it's a very powerful concept. And you don't understand a customer's motivations till you talk to them, right? So you can observe their behaviors, or you can model their behaviors in teams and with your partners. But until you understand why they're doing things and what's motivating, then, you know, that's where you get to the heart of, like, okay, how do we make this a needed experience for these people that's going to really satisfy them emotionally, not just, you know, from a human factor standpoint, that we're going to design an ergonomic product for them, or one that has the right features to support their workflows. So that's kind of that point. And then related to testing, yeah, we promote testing early and often, concept testing first, right? Even before, so obviously before you invest a lot of money in code and development and building materials for physical products and services, you know, we like to, what we call resonance test the concept. And that involves storytelling. So, you know, Abhijit, so to the point you're making about storytelling and how do you bring that concept to life to a consumer before you build it, and test that, you know, does it resonate, the resonance test, as an early way to, you know, test your ideas and your concepts for products and services. And then obviously you switch to more usability type testing once that product goes through iterations and you're developing out that experience, the experience design of the experience of that product. So hopefully, and it's harder now because of the pandemic. We can't physically be in the same room with our consumers. So we have to get good at remote testing and, you know, remote concept testing, remote contextual inquiries, remote qualitative research. It's stuff that's all happening now that we have to get really good at, and develop, not just my company, but all of us on this panel. Like, we need to band together and come up with these tools for design and for the betterment of products and services in the future.
Right. I mean, you answered quite a few of questions that were already there in the chat, and one of them was also that, you know, you'd get design to get users hooked, which you kind of answered as well. Andy, one of the questions from the audience, what project have you worked on that you're most proud of, and why?
I think it's a larger one, even relates to the storytelling, and, you know, even I'm really proud of Google for Kids is the thing. And I was super excited because I was like, hey, let's make all the products more kid oriented. And I was excited. But I think the fundamental thing that we did was just deal with the nightmare of COPPA compliance and kids under 14 and parental approval for accounts, and the complexity there of just making them work. I'm most proud of that, I think, both because it was just so complicated. I think as a designer, I've never spent more time with lawyers than I did in that, and discussing how, you know, risks and complications, and to me, it was, I have two kids, so I think to me that was exciting to just make that work, and make that possible. I mean, but I feel very fortunate to have done many projects along those lines. But if you made me pick one, Yeah, it would be like, I'm not going to tell you which kid I like better because I like both my kids. I hope they're probably here. I hope they're in school. Hopefully not. It's like that here, but fortunately, it's not like that. Anyway, I'd say that I'm most proud of Google for Kids, and I think what sold it was stories. So I think what these guys are, I think I'm most proud that I fought for telling the story versus doing, it's just so easy. A lot of product people, or maybe it's a Google culture, want to do mocks and like quite these most literal screen by screen flows. And I was like, nope, we're not doing it that way. Like, we're going to explain what this is about and why kids need to be able to sign in and why they need their own device and why parents need supervision and how that's all going to work. And that was presented to Larry Page, and is the only reason the project went forward, is that, and instead of mocks of screen by screen flows, we did a storyboard. It quite literally was Lily getting a phone and her parents worried about it and what was going to happen. And I think just telling that, it's not just telling a story, it's telling a good story that explains it. And then that story getting better from the team is just so aligning. And I'm most proud of that, both because it was a battle, and then I know the product director who I just went to the mat and used all my capital with him. In the end, it was just, I was very proud that like he was like, that was the right thing, we're going to do stories. So.
Right. I mean, I know it's not a fair question to a designer, which is your best project, because that's always a difficult one.
They're all great, right?
Short,
we do only good projects, right? No,
obviously.
I'm kidding.
And they never
There's
fail,
plenty
right?
of bad ones. There's plenty of bad ones. I've
right.
learned very much. I've failed a lot, learned a lot.
Yeah, that's part of the journey, right? And that's what we're here to learn. So we're short on time. I'll just take like one last word from all of you guys. Like, it's the post-pandemic era going to start hopefully very soon. So, I mean, any opportunities, any trends that you see, or any new innovations that you see that should be coming to light? I mean, starting with Jonathan. I know you wrote about digital communities.
Yeah, so I wrote, I'm doing some research into how the pandemic is influencing us as a society. It's about digital communities, and basically it's based on this MIT research. There's a paper being published from some neuroscientists there that are observing that there's activity in our brains that's akin to hunger, starvation, and we're being starved for social engagement. And so, there's an opportunity there for new companies, new services to how can we connect people together during this period of social isolation. And Deepti, I hope you're right that we're almost out of the woods. I want to be able to plan for an extended period of this, just because I think, we're not going to suddenly be back to where we were very quickly. And I think, brands have a responsibility to connect people, not just to their own brands and services and products, but to each other and lifestyles and communities. And I think that's that's an opportunity right now. We call it a trend, but I hesitate to call it a trend because I think it's universal that we're social beings, we're starved. And I think the services that'll be successful in the coming months are the ones that can successfully connect people to experiences that are social. And that's where I like to steer my clients sometimes.
All right. I mean, for those of you who are interested, Jonathan has also written some great articles on that. Happy to share if you want to share it in the chat, Jonathan.
Yes,
Justin, do you have any last thoughts on any opportunities and challenges, edge tech or otherwise?
Yeah, I think for me, I just want to speak to as far as like competing for the talent within our organizations and our companies, is that I think one of the big things that has really changed and changing is that I think at least in recent history, people have not been so unwilling to relocate for work as they are now and will continue to be. And organizations that choose to embrace remote work and being able to figure out a way to do this in a way that is effective, I think are going to continue to have a huge advantage for attracting top talent.
Right. Thank you, Justin. Abhijit, really quick, one line.
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely. I think, I think Jonathan kind of brought up a very interesting point, right? I think the pandemic has kind of really shifted a few things in our lives more permanently than others. I think what we have seen is that in general, people and companies are cautious to make more long-term commitments. So something that we need to all think about, because everyone is uncertain in terms of what would be the next new normal or whatever we want to call it. They want flexibility. I think digital has increased its share in our lives in general. So that's going to stay. I think it will be challenging for us to identify the trends that will continue and trends that will roll back. So for me, for example, I'm thinking education, and I know we kind of completely shifted from the physical model of education, schools and colleges and universities to 100% virtual. I guess there will be a little bit of a pullback, and we'll probably kind of settle into a hybrid model. So for each of you in your own space industry, think about trends which are going to be more permanent things. Think about trends which are going to be to kind of roll back to some extent. I think and research is going to be a great place to kind of really to understand those socio-economic and technological shifts.
Right. So more sustainable trends, right? Andrew, moonshots for technology? Trend?
Well, first of all, I'm really thankful for, I think you put together really good questions, really provocative questions. I think every single one, I was like, oh, I could add on I want to talk about that and the group. And I don't want to end on a downer. So I'm going to try to take that. I think the world's changed a lot, and there's so many opportunities. Like, we wouldn't be here in this virtual format. So I think there's ways to connect. It's maybe not as the same for sure as connecting. So it'll be great. Maybe we'll value it more when we're together. But what I'm most worried about is those people who can't work virtually. I'm worried about the transfer of wealth to people, the billionaire, and I don't want to get on a soapbox about this, but I think it's something, there's something, let's be thankful that we can do this, but I think there's a lot of people who can't. There's things that have to be physical, and God bless them that they I'm thankful for that. And I worry for that crowd, and I feel like that's a mission that we should all be, that crowd. I mean, people who can't work virtually, I think we need to take care of that. And people who don't have the fortunes and luck that we have, I think is just critical for us to be thinking about.
Thank you, Andy. I mean, great thoughts there, and definitely we have to think of equity as well. So, amazing place to stop. Thank you so much, guys, for your insights. It was really helpful, and you bring in such different perspectives. We ran over the time a little bit, but I think it was still worth it. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Deepti. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Great meeting you all.